Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest is Chia-Lin Simmons. She's the founder of LookyLoo, or Lucy AI. It's actually LookyLoo. It's an AI-powered social commerce platform. And I won't give any more details than that because I'd rather her describe it to you. But Chia-Lin, thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me, Rich.
Yeah, tell me about LookyLoo. I like the name. Tell me what it's about.
Sure. I'm glad you like the name. Well, Rich, I don't know what the audience of the podcast are made up of, but if it's a guy, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard sort of that dreaded question from the females in your life, which is that dreaded, so how does this make me look? And so it is literally a conundrum that many, many men run into because there's really only one good answer, as my husband would tell me. And the reality is that that's a predictable answer, right? And so for a lot of women, getting validation on the clothing that they're purchasing is crucial. Because for everything else in the environment that we're living in today, we're really used to what I call the Amazonification of purchases, right? So we're all now conditioned to think about when we make a purchase, say, for example, a binocular. Right, that 5 stars from 5 people may not be as reliably good a purchase decision as maybe 4 stars from 1,000 people. But today, clothing and apparel online purchases don't have that sort of sense of validation for purchases. And it's because clothing fit and clothing purchases are actually a very complex thing. And today, a lot of the technologies that we have in place from a technology perspective can be very linear. And when I say that, I think it tends to come from a very sort of as a woman, I think it comes from a very male perspective, but it's also very numerically driven. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that when we purchase clothing as men, we buy by measurements. And so a lot of people purchase clothing, for example, as a woman, I purchase for my husband. It's really great because, I know that he is maybe a 34, 36 or something like that and 15.5-inch neck. And so everything is done by measurements. And so it's easy to go from brand to brand with those measurements in place and make purchases that are, if not 100% accurate, but fairly close. And so the technology that we have today related to apparel purchases online is fixed on that premise, which is if I can get you numerically close to the number that you're supposed to be, then we're done, right? I've solved your problem. But the reality is that, women's purchases are more complex than that. And that is where really LookyLoo came out of.
Yeah, a strange idea came to my mind. I don't know if this would be good or bad, but, you mentioned an Amazon product, right? So for every Amazon product, there's 5-star reviews, there's 1-star reviews, there's like trolls that hate it, love it. I wonder how a person would feel if somehow, 50 people were able to rate how they looked in an outfit. Because mentally, I don't know what that would feel like if you, no matter what you put on, no matter what you wear, some people would say 1-star, some people would say 5-star. And mentally, I don't know how that would mess with you if you had that kind of aggregate opinion on what you're wearing. I don't know if that's what your platform does, but the idea just came to me. I just wanted to pass that by you.
And it does. And so actually, it's sort of an interesting perspective, right? And our AI, Lucy, is premised on feedback from a crowd of consumers, sort of the way that we would look at Amazon, except that there's no sort of written comments. You don't get to tell somebody, you look really, really fat and your butt looks big. We really ask very straightforward questions around, is this a hang, which is purchase, or is this a toss, don't purchase? And if somebody votes and says, this woman shouldn't purchase, another woman tells another woman, like, hey, look, I don't think you should buy it. We really make them check off 3 boxes, which is it's not the right fit, it's not the right color, it's not the right occasion. And so clothing purchase is also, and what looks good is contextual to location and age group as well. And there's a definitive social norm around that. And so the AI takes into account things related to geographic location, age, and all of those things. And it takes into premise things such as, because you're voting, you're both posting things for people to vote on, but also you're voting on other things. We're able to tease out what would work for you by not just consciously from the AI perspective, noting like things that you like because you're posting those. We know which brands, what colors, what kind of styles, and all of those things, but also your unconscious biases and interests, right? So based on how you vote on other people. So the AI gets smarter and smarter every time you post and vote. But it's, it's a little bit more binary than maybe 5 stars and 1 star. So it's either yes or no. And it's a fairly easy question. If you ask no, but why, right? And allows us to basically get a better and better recommendation engine. And for lack of a better word, Lucy is an AI stylist that's completely personalized. And the more you post and the more you vote, the more it becomes personalized to you across multiple different brands. And we want to do that because,
well, one second. You're taking like you get shoes or a dress or something, and then you take a selfie and you post it to this platform, and then people and an AI review you, or just an AI or people? Or?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So 71% of millennial women, more than 71% of millennial women today, send selfies to their friends while they're shopping at a store, or if they're trying on things that they actually had shipped to their home and trying to decide whether or not they were going to ship it back. Right. And the reason why we're building a lot of this is that this is a major concern to us. Right. Women shop.
One question.
Sure.
So what happens when I'm not one obviously, but what happens when a millennial woman shops? She'll go into like the booth, put on a dress or something, and then take a picture of herself and send it to friends, or just take a picture and save it to her phone for later, or what will they do?
They actually take a picture and text it to their friends now, hoping for feedback. And the problem here is that I know which 5 friends I'm sending it to. I have to wait sometimes if they don't give me feedback in real time. And so maybe of the 5 that I sent out, on average, maybe I will get feedback on 2. And so that's equivalent to me of getting the 5-star review from 2 people, right? Don't feel the sense of confidence that I maybe would have had around purchasing maybe a 4-star from 1,000 people. That's, if you ask anybody today, including my 10-year-old, whether or not, where would you go and buy if you went on Amazon? What's a better product? The 4-star, 1,000, or 5-star with 5 feedback. We've all conditioned people to think this way now, and that's part of the dilemma. And so the goal here is, again, getting, women are already doing this. And we do this because part of this is that we've always shopped socially. When we talk about purchasing, the psychology of purchasing, there's things that we do like grocery shopping, which is kind of a chore. And so Amazon's done a great job. And, some of these companies that does grocery work, you kind of check off your list and it gets sent. It's not a shopping experience. It's a purchasing chore. Right. But shopping tends to be a social, aspect. There's actually behavioral issues tied to how we signal about ourselves in clothing that we wear and how we fit into sort of the social norms of our, the environment that we live in. And so it's subjective and it's social. And so women already shop this way. And so that validation is key to sort of success. And so for us, when we talk about people, trying to help people find better fit, we really talk about finding better fit and look confident. And that means to us like 3 sort of stakes around the validation that the AI needs to achieve, which is this idea of you need to be able to get the numerical number, right? So if I'm a size 2 in this brand, it's really a size 4 in this brand. I got to get you there. And that's a no-brainer. But we also have to get you to the right shape, right? Sorry, so just let me okay.
Yeah. Who is doing the rating? Is it the friends of the person and the AI is listening, and then eventually the AI becomes the louder voice in telling you if you're getting the right thing or not?
Yeah, so both people are voting. People are voting, and Lucy is voting because Lucy's learning from the behavior of women who are voting. Right? It's learning to understand what's a good vote versus not a good vote, and what's considered a good shape for you and not a good shape, and what's the right color for you is not. And so it's acting as if it's one vote within 1,000 votes of people who voted on you. And what it does is it then takes everything from a collective basis and then makes a recommendation. So it's learning how to gamify that experience for itself to say, like, how did I do compared to the majority of the feedback for this particular woman on this particular post. So it's learning
but
very
over
rapidly.
time, will I be able, let's say I've been using this app for, I don't know, a few months, and Lucy's voted like 50 times that I bought stuff. Does Lucy now become like my first go-to? So I'm going to a store and I see brands XYZ. Will Lucy tell me, hey, usually you're a 2, but in brand X, you tend to be a 4. Watch out for that. Does it now become like your proactive advisor, or does it still remain in that role of just voting each time?
It's actually becoming an advisor. We have a daily. We're putting out basically look daily picks for women. We start off first with basically, look, here's the product that we think you should purchase, right, on a daily basis. And so 5 recommendations a day. And then we would like to evolve into version 2 of the AI so that the app is, when we're location aware, so you're able to go to Banana Republic and say, like, here are the 5 things that we would recommend from Banana Republic that we think would be a good fit for you, and in the size. And
pretty
that's
cool.
where version 2. Yeah. And that's really the goal, because what we want to do more than this is be able to say, like, it's not just that when you walk into Banana Republic that, hey, you're a size 2, but now you're really a size 6 here. Is that not only are you a size 6 here, but as a woman who is a pear-shaped woman, these are the clothing that is successful for women who are pear-shaped. You self-identify as a pear-shaped woman. Here, how other pear-shaped women look like in this dress. 86%, we have what we call the confidence rating API that could be licensed out to our retail and brand partners, where literally you go to a product page and see sort of 5 shapes. And the bottom is underneath the hourglass, it could say like 86%. So literally, that if you're hourglass shape, like 86% of women who are hourglass would look great on this. And then you could see actually real women wearing this dress who are pear-shaped. And so you could actually see it. And we do this because it's not enough. A lot of times when we talk about looking at fit, people ask us things like, look, why wouldn't you do VR, for example, or smart mirror, where you could superimpose the clothing on the person, then you could see how it looks like. And, as a tech geek, my pushback is always, I'm not a tech developer, but I'm a tech geek enough to know that, hey, like, it takes a lot of computing power to basically make things flow. And so I give an example like Pixar, right? It takes a lot of computing power to make sure the character's hair look like it's actually flowing underwater. And so you can't really render those things in real time on a VR headset. And VR headsets at a price point is just not realistic for any brand and retailers to do on a mass market basis, right? So how do you capture weight and weave and all of this, like thousands and thousands and thousands of permutations? You really can't do that accurately. You will never be able to tell whether or not a fabric's going to make somebody's hips look big or not, unless you actually see it on a woman with hips.
Yeah.
And
well,
so
I like your method better. It's a lot more social, and you don't need VR for this, I don't think, at all. I think you got it right on. The only thing that it makes me wonder is, and I think because I'm a guy, if like my wife says, oh, what do you think of this? If I tell her good or bad, she doesn't seem to trust what I say. So I wonder, maybe it's me, but I just wonder what women think about their friends saying something, if they would trust what they say. And then secondly, what if you're a woman and you're like starting to gain weight, and the AI is like, oh, you're a size 5, and you're like, no, I'm not, I'm a 4, and all the consensus is like, well, it doesn't fit you. What happens as a woman's situation changes, and maybe she's feeling insecure this week, and she's going shopping or something, and just all the comments just really are not making her happy because she just doesn't think that that's accurate, or she just doesn't want to hear it. Like, what will you do with that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, so 2 things. There's zero commenting on the platform, right? Nobody wants to hear from somebody that they look fat. And so we're a women-founded company. I'm a product person, so no woman wants to hear that. So there's zero commenting feedback, right? So you either get a hang, buy, or toss, don't buy, right? Pretty, just straightforward related to purchasing. That's point 1. Point 2 is that I think you asked a really, really interesting question around, like, do people trust people's feedback? And so that's one point, was that when you ask your husband, really you're very honest, which is great. My husband's gotten to the point, he's just like, there's only really one answer, which is like, you look good, and I'm like, that's not true, right? And your friends, who's going to tell you what. Exactly. And so when we first started this, and this is actually, for example, a female-centric product point of view. So when we first started, pretty much all of my male developers and including my CTO basically said like, oh, well, she's just limited to your friends, right? And I was like, no. And this is exactly why, which is you really trust, and again, we are all now conditioned, but women as well, is that we trust basically perfect strangers because they have nothing vested in you. I can always tell you that there's women out there who always have the same story I do, which is that one time or two times or 10 times when you walk out of a dressing room and you're looking at yourself and another woman steps out and says, wow, you look fabulous in that. And I keep thinking, well, that woman has nothing vested in me. She's a random stranger and she thinks I look great. So clearly I look good. Right. And so we held on to those things. And so this is why the voting has to be crowd oriented. It's not only just because we want to feed Lucy data points and understanding and social understanding of what looks good in a geographic location. It's that, again, the sheer numbers make a difference, right? Because Amazon has taught us that too. Right. And so that's crucial. The sizing issue, getting bigger in size, is a totally different question, which is can the AI detect that you're changing sizes? And so it's learning that as other people are learning that. So if things are too tight, other people will say like it's not the right fit. And so you'll get a consistent feedback that maybe it's just too tight and not a right fit. So the AI is learning that at the same time. And so it may not be something that you like to hear, but it is then a toss. And then we would be able to tell you like, hey, like, a lot of this, we'd be able to true up like data to basically tell you like, 10 of the outfits that you posted, people didn't think it was a good fit this month, FYI. So.
Well, I could see, and it, as the platform scales and you get, millions of women buying stuff, I don't know how there's enough people to give opinions. I mean, the AI has to take over in large part at some point because, who's going to sit there and rate millions of people putting on a dress?
Yeah. So, are you familiar with an app called Wishbone?
No.
It's literally a polling app. And so, and it, people of all ages, from literally as young as a 10-year-old, I have a 10-year-old that does this, to people who are in their, 50s and 60s. Like when you're standing in line and you're kind of bored, you go on there and then they ask you questions to basically in rapid succession, like, look, Harry Styles versus like, I don't know my boy bands, like Harry Styles versus like Justin Bieber, which one would you pick? And so literally people scroll and vote because people like to see what their opinions are stacked to other people's. You'd be surprised at how popular this app is and how much people love to give opinions on clothing and cosmetics and all of these things. And so, especially for women where we get to see new fashion all the time, it's an opportunity for us to actually see what's out there and what people are trying on and cool things. And so when you're standing in line, sometimes you're just not purchasing. Sometimes you're just a voter. And so you're standing in line waiting. And so you're just kind of voting. You're like, oh, like that looks cool. And oh my God, that was a banana republic. I didn't know that came out. And so it's an opportunity for people to do what they vaguely do on Instagram, but gets them nothing. Right? You like something on Instagram, it doesn't give you shit at this point, right? It just basically tells you like, hey, you like something, but it doesn't give you feedback like, oh, okay, so Lucy's knowing that she really liked this Banana Republic top, so I'm filing it away that if I see something similar, and if we think that it looks good on somebody with her similar sort of demographic and geographic location, we should recommend that to her, right?
Well, it seems like it seems super important to have the participation of the brands. I mean, if I were a brand, I would really want to use this, and I would actually take this feed with permission. Let's say I was Banana Republic. I would want to take this feed and use it in my advertising. I'd want to push the feed of people trying stuff on, even if it's delayed or whatever, to the different platforms like Instagram or Facebook or whatever to get more brand awareness. Because that's super cool to get all these people wearing my clothes, and promoting my brand. So it seems like that'll be like a very important thing for you to do is integrate with them, and a bunch of brands will really want to push this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are a pre-seed company, early phases. And so we are actually now in starting our active discussions with retailer brands. And we are speaking to direct brands, which is like the Gaps and, they're vertical manufacturers, Banana Republic, they manufacture and sell their own goods in stores, as well as brands that distribute to other people like Macy's, as well as talking to large sort of retailers like, the Walmarts, Nordstroms, Macy's, that type of sort of aggregate retailers as well. I mean, absolutely. Look, I mean, I think it's actually what's interesting to me, and what we're interested in as well is there is a real surge in what we call direct-to-consumer brands. Basically, people like Everlane who are creating brands that never touched a physical retail store. And our feeling is that we are absolutely even most crucial to people who are starting new fashion brands. Because typically, if you're going to start a direct-to-consumer brand, you maybe will have a pop-up store in Los Angeles, maybe a pop-up store in New York. But what about the people sitting in Ohio, right? You can't try these things on. You're going to have to buy it, ship it, return it. Returns are a huge problem for apparel retailers. In fact, more than 30 to 50% of all apparel retail is returned, and it's actually a really big financial time bomb for them. It's a $250 billion plus problem. And so we think what we can do is give people the opportunity and brands the opportunity to basically show off the product in almost like mini boutiques. Like, this is how it would look like from this really great woman who might have a little bit of more of a hip. And, if I'm living in Ohio and I see that it looks great on this woman's hip, I might just click on that picture and click to buy. Right. And that's where we think that we can actually bring a lot, not just to the retailers that actually have stores, but also for those who are just launching their brands. And as physical retail is, to a certain degree, slowing down. And apparel is one of those category areas where we still loathe to not touch and feel and try on because of the challenging issues related to fit, as we were discussing here. This may be an opportunity for them to look at doing more and selling more than they have been online. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. That's true. It would drive purchasing. It should reduce returns and all that. Yeah. So,
it's a $1.4 trillion business. So apparel is huge, but it's not one. Typically, when you talk about a tech industry, where a majority of venture capitalists, 95% of whom are men, this is not something that really at the surface of the things that they're looking at typically. And so, but it is a major issue for the retail industry and apparel industry specifically. So,
well, I could say the new fashion for the new year that's coming out, you get a critical mass of, I could see eventually you'd have influencers on your platform that all they do is go try on stuff because they they become influencers, and then brands would want them to try on stuff in their store and post it on LookyLoo and all that. So it's going to be, I think it's a really great product. It's really going to evolve into a huge ecosystem for you.
We certainly hope so. And I mean, what's really, I think, crucial to us is that, I'm a woman CEO. And today, if you look at where Instagram and all of these places are going, there's some concerns, right? Like, typically influencers are women who are super thin, they're 22. And so on our platform, because people are actually trying things on, you could follow what we call micro influencers. These are not the Kim Kardashians of the world who are aggregating 1 million, people following them and who are, saying like, oh, I love that top because it's aspirational, because who is really wearing a Valentino top in our daily lives? But maybe I'm following a micro influencer who lives in, Los Angeles, and, she has a little bit of a hip like me. And so, but she looks fabulous. And so I follow her and I want to try on all of the brands that she tries on because, look, I know she is like me. And I think that what we're going to start seeing in the near future related to social media, especially for things like apparel, is that we want to be able to identify. We want to be able to purchase those things. We want to be able to identify with our influencers. And so that gives us an opportunity to make it more personal. And we think that LookyLoo could, play a role in that. Not to say that we think that, major influencers couldn't bring that sense of authenticity to LookyLoo as well. We certainly, have started some activities around talking to folks like that to come on the system once we launch in Q1. So,
are there any settings that you can choose? So I'm a woman. I'm going to go try on something. Can I specify people in a certain radius or geographic area? Can I specify age? Like, eventually it's not just my friends that will look at it and the AI, but what if I want to know the opinion of, let's say I'm a 50-year-old woman. I don't want to know the opinion of like 20-year-old women. I want to know the opinion of women like my age or professional women that are my age. Can I specify stuff like that in the platform? Or have you thought about that?
Yeah. So, so this is related to sort of how does geography and demographics sort of relate to feedback as well as potential recommendations, right? So we are a startup. So once we launch in Q1, there will be very little filter because our goal is to basically get as many votes and posts as we can. Every post is geographically tagged. And so what we're trying to do is get you the right, when Lucy's looking at recommendations, it's looking at like what looks good in your location. So the voters, whenever they vote, we know their geographic location. Whenever you post, we know your general geographic location. So things that are in your geographic location will be way differently than somebody voting from Miami if you're based in the Bay Area, right? Geography makes a difference. And this is literally a truism when it comes to clothing, right? Black is really cool in New York, maybe not so cool here. And so we know that those things make a difference. Related to age, at this point, we see that as a version 2.0 to allow people to want to filter by age, because we don't want to make onboarding a challenge for people, and sharing age is a very sensitive thing for a lot of women. So
that's okay. Yeah.
So version 2, we think that once we've established a level of trust with our community, that by adding those things in and giving them the opportunity to opt into that, we think that they'll be more open to doing it.
Well, if you think about the knowledge that Lucy will get, Lucy will know, after a while, okay, for this brand, women that are like size 16 and that are 14, what if I'm able to now, let's say, okay, so I'm heavier, I'm a woman, and I'm older or something, age, maybe you can't tell, but Lucy may be able to know, all right, well, out of all the voting pool, we can skew it so that women that are about your size can vote on your stuff instead of skinny women, because they may have the perception you don't want. Like if I'm heavier and I'm a woman and I'm trying on some kind of dress, my guess is that I'd value the opinion of women that are similar to me in weight and look and all that stuff more than like you said, like 22-year-old skinny nothings, that they don't know what's going on. They don't know what it's like to be me. So at some point you may want to, even behind the scenes, filter it like that. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah. So, I think the reality is that we all have a lot of insecurities. And I think that we make a lot of assumptions related to what other people think about us. And I think that the initial reality is that, like I said, the woman who walked out from the dressing room next to me, I'm just thinking about one particular instance. That woman couldn't be any more different than I was. And she was complimentary, because we can't assume that other people, because of who they are, their age, what their racial profile looks like, whatever, what their size is, would be a negative influence in any way. And so, we're looking for certain issues. And I think the reality is that we capture some data related to a poster, a member sort of sizing and shape and weight, because we need to help make recommendations for size. But could we do it? We could. If we're seeing that the data is skewed in a way that is not positive and that there's a real clamoring for that, then we may actually make that filter or available for both Lucy as well as the users themselves, right? And so we're capturing that data. Will we be putting that into a initial analysis? I think not. Again, I don't know. For example, on Amazon, who's actually voting on the purchase of that binocular? It could be somebody who is a fabulous, person who loves to look at birds and uses it all the time, to, a guy who uses it on occasion once a year, right? We just don't know, but they all purchase and they all have a sense of feedback, and they all make up to the larger sort of feedback pool for purchase of that.
I think I just think you're going to run into that issue, like, especially for the people that do the rating. So, when I'm betting, care or not, whatever, but let's say I'm a black woman and I'm heavy set. I'm not going to want to sit there and like rate all these like really skinny white women. I probably won't care. I'll probably actually want to rate people that are like me, like, black women that are heavier. That's my guess. Or if I'm Asian, I'll probably want to rate like people that are similar to me. I bet you that you'll run into that kind of behavior on both sides. I want to be evaluated by people like me, and I want to evaluate people like me. So it's just, I don't know. Again, I don't mean to give advice or anything, but that idea occurred to me that will be a significant influence on the platform at some point.
Yeah, and again, we are, I'm a firm believer in, asking the question to your users, right? And this has not come up as a question, to be candid. And it's because as a group of, people in the world today, like we're constantly looking at different standards of beauty and different body shapes. The goal here is not to be insular and yourself. I mean, we're a company built by a woman, and it's meant for women. We want to celebrate, and there's a real movement towards everybody celebrating all bodies, shapes, and sizes. And so what I'd hate to see is a stratification or people only voting on people of a similar size, age, all of that. I think we would like to build a community that is extremely open, where all beauty shapes and sizes, shades are celebrated. I mean, I think that I'm certainly not a 22-year-old, very, very thin girl who lives in Miami, but I can appreciate that she's beautiful, and I would want to be able to give her feedback. And so, and I think that would be sort of similar to anybody else. And I think that, today, if you look at voting apps like the Wishbones of the world, we don't, they serve me up questions about, boy bands. And let's be candid, I am 45. I don't give a shit about boy bands, but I'd be interested in seeing like my hatred of like Justin Bieber is that, justified or not against, the bulk of the people out there. And so I remember swiping and I was like, oh, other people hate Bieber too. So
that's the thing. Like, let's say you had a high-end brand. I wear just regular clothes, so I don't know anything about clothes, but I don't know. What's the name of some woman's brand that's like very expensive?
Let's say a Christian Dior, right? Not a lot of people regularly wear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like if people are trying on Christian Dior, who's going to vote on that? Their friends will, sure, but how will other people feel voting on that? I don't mean to be negative. I just wonder what trends you'll see, because women that never would wear that or can't afford it or whatever might be like, oh, I don't want to vote on some rich woman's clothing. What do I care? I can't wear that stuff. Or, who knows? Maybe there's a particular
group. But that's interesting. But this is interesting, right? Because if you look at how these things work in aspirations, right? We are an entire group of individuals. We are aspirational as a community. Pinterest is built entirely on aspirations, right? About things that I would like to have. Instagram is built on aspirations. Why the hell would you follow the Kardashians? They wear Valentino. I don't wear Valentino, but you know what? It's fun to just see what they're wearing because it's beautiful. It's art, right? Fashion is art. And so for a lot of people, it's an opportunity to see something beautiful. And so, people buy magazines. Most magazine covers and cover shoots are clothing that are, $10,000, but we still buy Vogue magazine and Marie Claire and all of those things to see beautiful fashion and what it looks like on. And so, again, it could be, and I'm perfectly candid about this. I think that the male mentality around fashion and clothing and aspirational clothing could be very different than women's, and has typically been very different. So, and I think that, and this is again, why we would always sort of, constantly test and survey our users to understand how best to sort of provide a product to them. But a lot of women, we buy magazines, we go to Pinterest, we pin things that we may never be able to wear because it's beautiful. If I think about my Pinterest board right now, I literally have a board that says beautiful designs. And there are $30,000 ball gowns I'm never going to wear, as a tech entrepreneur living in, the Bay Area. But I pinned it there because it's beautiful to see. It gives me ideas, about, other things. And so it could serve as aspiration. It could give me a sense of like directionally what are interesting to me. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, it must be interesting talk around your office between the men and the women because like for instance, I could tell you I don't even see purses. Like they're literally invisible to me. If you ask me about purses, I can't even remember seeing them. But for women, maybe it's men just like they literally have different eyes. They don't see things that you would see. It's kind of funny. They're very, very different creatures. So
yeah, it's really interesting to me. I mean, for example, I know people whose wives purchase clothing for them, like I do. My husband has probably not set foot in a store in quite a long time. I buy it, I bring it home. He doesn't like it, I return it. Because he really hates to shop. I need to probably check in with my co-founder, but I'm pretty sure that's the case with him as well. And so, it's interesting because I've actually spoken to potential investors, and some of them are fabulous dressers, VCs, and they care. And they ask me, so, after you tackle women's clothing, are you looking at men's clothing? And they're always slightly crestfallen when I tell them, heck no. and they have to explain that, look, it's not because I don't think that there's valid questions around things that fit men and the ease of shopping. It's just that psychologically, what we're really dealing with is how women shop and the psychology and recommendations and how things fit for women. And so, if I had to build an entirely new AI, and a service for men, I would do things radically different. And so I would go back and survey the men, look at their patterns of shopping, and build something probably very, very different than what I would be building here today. And so our next week is into cosmetics, color cosmetics, for example, because we know that more than 60+% of, cosmetics are now purchased online. And so, but finding that perfect shade of red lipstick could be a quest for a lot of people, but how would you know it looks great on you, right? Unless you're close to Sephora. And what if you're in Ohio and you're nowhere close? You're like 50 miles away in winter from that Sephora red lipstick. You kind of have to buy it and then try it and return it, or probably what will happen is that because it's under a certain price point, you'll buy it, you bring it home and it looks like crap, and then you keep it and you're sad. So from a customer acquisition perspective, I would be fixing the same problem in cosmetics. And so our probable next move, or our planned next move from women's apparel, would be literally into cosmetics. Not even handbags and shoes, because those are accessories and they don't really necessarily have to match all the time. But cosmetics is a head scratcher for a lot of women too. So
I think you've got a lot of work ahead of you, but I think you've got an awesome opportunity, and I'm excited for you and your business. I really am. I think it's really great.
Thank you. It's scary, and dealing with computer vision is never easy. I have to tell people it's not like natural language AI, which is hard already, but then trying to add computer vision is a little bit more challenging, of course. And so, but we're excited to be doing this. So thank you so much.
It'd be funny if you built in a feature. Oh my God, did you see how that AI looked at you? But I know you wouldn't do that.
You know what? That's an excellent idea. Like, oh, what did that AI say about me? So we're looking at a lot of things with Lucy and what we can do with Lucy. I mean, she's learning, and we always kind of compare her to, the birth, baby AI named Lucy, and then she's sort of crawling right now, and so she's going to be heading into a sort of walking mode, and so at some point she will probably become a sassy teenager. So we'll see how far we can advance her into that state. And beyond that.
Well, very cool. So what's the best way for listeners to interact and to and to reach you, to ask questions, to talk about what's going on?
Yeah, so they can always reach out to us on Twitter. We're at Hello LookyLoo. That's HELLOLOOKYLOO. So we always answer our DMs, and we are found on Instagram and all the social sort of platforms. So.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, Chia-Lin, this is awesome. I thought at first I was like, I don't know, this is too exciting. But actually, I think it's really cool. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies, that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.